My name is Emma Catherine Morrison. I'm 29 years old, and I'm about to tell you the most impossible, terrifying, and ultimately transformative story of my life. A story that taught me the hardest lesson I've ever had to learn about what truly matters in this world, and what is simply beautiful distraction that looks like blessing, but is actually curse in disguise. This is the story of how I lost everything I thought defined me, how I found a place that gave me everything I thought I wanted, and how I had to walk away from paradise itself to save my soul and my children. 3 months ago, I was living what I believed was a normal, stable, middle-class American life in the suburbs of Portland, Oregon. I worked as an administrative coordinator at a mid-sized marketing firm downtown, making $45,000 a year, which wasn't much in expensive Portland, but was enough when combined with my husband's income. My husband, whose name I can barely bring myself to say anymore, was James Morrison, 32 years old, working as a sales manager at a tech startup making decent money. Together, we earned enough to rent a nice 2-bedroom apartment in Beaverton, drive reliable, if not exciting cars, go out to dinner occasionally, save a little bit each month. We were living the American dream in its most modest, achievable form for young professional couple trying to build stable foundation for future. Family. James and I had been married for 6 years, having met during our senior year at Portland State University, where we were both studying business administration. We had fallen in love with that naive optimism that characterizes young couples who genuinely believe their love will conquer any obstacle life throws at them. We had shared dreams of building comfortable middle-class life together, eventually buying house with white picket fence, having 2.5 children, living out every cliché of American suburban happiness that our parents' generation had promised was achievable if you just worked hard and played by the rules. We had gotten married 2 years after graduation in modest ceremony at small church in his hometown in rural Washington state, had honeymooned for 1 week in Mexico, which was all we could afford, had come back to Portland ready to build our life together with energy and hope that seems almost laughable to me now in retrospect, knowing how it would all crumble. But somewhere around our 4th year of marriage, something began to shift in ways I didn't fully recognize as warning signs, until it was far too late to do anything about it. James started working longer hours, claiming his startup was in critical growth phase, requiring extra commitment from all employees. He started being less emotionally available when he was home, preferring to be on his phone or watching television, rather than engaging in meaningful conversation with me, our intimate life. Together, which had never been particularly passionate but had been comfortable and regular, began to dwindle to almost nothing. When I would try to talk to him about feeling disconnected, he would get defensive, saying I was being needy, or that he was under tremendous stress at work and couldn't handle me adding more pressure. I rationalized all of this, telling myself it was normal for marriages to lose some of their initial spark, that work stress was real and legitimate, that I needed to be more understanding and patient. I had no idea that every late night at the office was actually late night with her, that every business trip was actually romantic getaway with her, that every moment of emotional distance was because he had already emotionally left our marriage months before I would discover the truth. Then 8 months ago, I discovered I was pregnant, and not just pregnant, but expecting twins, which was complete shock because we hadn't been actively trying to conceive. We had actually been somewhat careful because we didn't feel financially ready yet to have children, wanting to save more money first, but apparently life had other plans, and despite our precautions, I found myself staring at positive pregnancy test with mixture of shock, fear, and eventually growing excitement as reality sank in. When I told James that evening after he came home from work, I expected some version of shock followed by eventual happiness, or at least acceptance, but his reaction was cold in a way that chilled me to my core. He said, "That's unfortunate timing. This complicates things significantly," without any warmth or joy, without hugging me or expressing any excitement about becoming father, just this flat effect that made me feel like I had just told him about car accident, or major financial setback, rather. Then miracle of new life. The pregnancy was difficult from the very beginning. I experienced severe morning sickness that lasted well into my 2nd trimester, making it nearly impossible to keep food down. I developed gestational diabetes requiring careful dietary management and regular blood sugar monitoring. My blood pressure started creeping up into concerning range that my doctor said was bordering on preeclampsia, which is a dangerous condition that can threaten both mother and babies. I was exhausted constantly, struggling to keep up with my job responsibilities while my body was going through this incredibly demanding process of growing 2 human beings simultaneously. My supervisor at the marketing firm was initially understanding about my frequent doctor's appointments and occasional sick days, but as weeks turned into months and my absences accumulated, her patience wore thin. She started making comments about needing reliable employees and asking pointed questions about whether I was really committed to my career, or just using pregnancy as excuse to slack off. Exactly 4 weeks ago, when I was 7 months pregnant, clearly showing with belly so large I could barely see my feet when looking down, my supervisor called me into her office on Friday afternoon and told me without any real compassion or empathy that they were letting me go. She said that my absences had become too disruptive to team productivity and that they needed someone more reliable. She handed me an envelope with my severance pay, which was $3,000 representing 1 month's salary, told me to clean out my desk that afternoon, and wished me good luck in cold, perfunctory way that made it clear she had already mentally moved on to finding my replacement before I even left the building. I sat in parking lot in my car crying for 30 minutes before I could compose myself enough to drive home, trying to figure out how we would manage with just James's income, trying to calculate how quickly we could burn through our modest savings, which was only about $8,000, worrying about health insurance and medical bills that would come with delivering twins. I decided that evening to cook James's favorite meal as a way to create positive atmosphere. Before telling him about losing my job, I stopped at grocery store and spent $100 of the severance money buying ingredients for elaborate dinner. I came home, and despite being exhausted and having swollen ankles and backache from pregnancy, I spent 3 hours preparing pot roast with all the traditional American comfort food sides he loved: mashed potatoes, green beans, homemade biscuits, apple pie for dessert. I set table nicely with our good plates and candles. I put on dress that I thought made me look as good as possible despite being very pregnant. I was trying to remind him that despite difficulties, we were still partnership, still team that could handle challenges together. But when James came home that evening around 8:30, which was later than usual, he wasn't alone. He walked in with woman I had never seen before, woman about my age with long blonde hair and tight dress that showed off figure that clearly had never been pregnant. And the way they entered together, the familiar, casual way they moved around each other, the way James didn't look surprised or guilty bringing her into our home, all of it told me the truth before any words were spoken. "Emma, this is Ashley," James said in voice that was businesslike and cold, as if he was introducing colleague at work meeting rather than bringing mistress into home he shared with his pregnant wife. "There's something I need to tell you, and I wanted to do it in person rather than over phone or text, because I'm not completely without decency. I'm leaving you. I haven't been happy in our marriage for a long time. Probably never was, if I'm being completely honest. And Ashley is pregnant with my child, and I've decided I want to be with her and raise that child together. I need you to pack your things and leave. The apartment is in my name, so you can't stay here." The words hit me like physical blows. Each sentence felt like punch to stomach that knocked wind out of me. I literally had to grab back of dining room chair to keep from falling down as rooms spun around me. "What? James, you can't be serious. I'm 7 months pregnant with your children, with twins. How can you do this to me now? To us?" My voice rose to scream as shock began to give way to panic and rage. "We're married. You took vows. You promised to love me in sickness and health, for better or worse." But James's face remained completely impassive, unmoved by my tears or my desperate words. "I'm sorry, Emma, but my mind is made up. I haven't loved you for a long time. I probably never really loved you in a way I should have. I think I married you because it seemed like what I was supposed to do at that age, but with Ashley I feel something real, something I never felt with you. And now that she's carrying my child, I want to build life with her. You need to accept this and move on. You can stay tonight, but I want you gone by tomorrow." I looked at Ashley, expecting to see at least some guilt or discomfort on face of woman who had destroyed my marriage and my life, but she just looked back at me with expression that was almost bored. Clearly, she felt no remorse about role she had played in this destruction. In fact, she seemed almost triumphant, as if she had won some competition I hadn't known I was in. "I have nowhere to go," I whispered, my voice breaking with desperation. "I lost my job today, James. I don't have income anymore. I don't have money. My family is 3,000 miles away on East Coast, and we barely speak after they disapproved of our marriage. Where am I supposed to go 7 months pregnant with nowhere to live?" James shrugged. Actually shrugged, as if my homelessness and the homelessness of his unborn children was minor inconvenience rather than crisis. "That's not really my problem anymore, Emma. You're resourceful. You'll figure something out. You always land on your feet. Just don't be here when I get back from work tomorrow." That night was longest and most agonizing of my entire life. I locked myself in our bedroom, listening to James and Ashley laughing in living room, hearing sounds that suggested they were being intimate on couch, where James and I used to watch movies together. Every sound was knife to my heart. I packed 2 suitcases with as many clothes and essential items as I could fit. I counted the $3,000 severance plus the $400 I had in my personal checking account, giving me total of $3,400 to my name. I talked to my babies moving in my belly, telling them I was sorry, so sorry that their father didn't want them, that we were going to have to figure this out somehow, that I would protect them no matter what. The next morning, James had already left for work without saying goodbye. Ashley was still asleep in what had been my bed. I walked out of apartment I had called home for 4 years, carrying 2 heavy suitcases, closing door behind me knowing I would never return. Walking out into cold November morning in Portland with gray skies and drizzle that is typical of Pacific Northwest at that time of year, with no plan, no destination, no idea what I was going to do. The following week was nightmare of survival. I tried staying in cheap motels but discovered quickly that even the cheapest ones were $60 to $80 per night, which meant my money would run out in a matter of weeks. I tried homeless shelters, but they were overcrowded and conditions were frightening with violence and drug use, and men who looked at my pregnant body in ways that made me feel deeply unsafe. I knew I couldn't stay there, especially being so vulnerable. I tried reaching out to few acquaintances I had, but everyone had excuses. Small apartments, roommates who wouldn't allow it. They were nice about it, but ultimately not willing to take in pregnant homeless women even temporarily. I called my mother back in Connecticut, but the conversation was cold. She was still angry that I had moved across country to marry a man she never approved of. She said, "I told you that marriage wouldn't work out, but you didn't listen to me. Now you need to face consequences of your own choices. I can't help you." And she hung up before I could even beg. I ate cheap fast food when I ate at all, trying to conserve money. I slept in my car in parking lots when I could find safe spots. I used public restroom in libraries and coffee shops to clean up as best I could. But after 4 days, I was approached by a police officer who told me I couldn't sleep in my car anymore, that it was against city ordinances, and if he saw me doing it again, he would write me a ticket I couldn't afford to pay. My money ran out faster than I anticipated. After 10 days, I was completely broke. $0. I was hungry in a way I had never experienced before. Not just appetite, but true desperate hunger, where my body ached for nutrition. My babies moved constantly in my belly as if they too were crying out for sustenance I couldn't provide. On my 11th day, homeless, cold, hungry, exhausted beyond anything I had ever known, feeling contractions that worried me might be early labor, I decided to leave the city completely. I thought maybe in rural areas outside Portland I might find some kind of help. Maybe small-town churches or communities would be more compassionate. At minimum, maybe I could find some kind of shelter that didn't cost money. I started walking east along Highway 26 that leads out of Portland into Mount Hood National Forest. I accepted rides from few sympathetic truckers who took pity on obviously pregnant women hitchhiking. One older woman driver gave me sandwich and apple, which I ate so fast I almost choked. She cried when she dropped me off, saying she wished she could do more, but she was just barely getting by herself. I walked into the national forest following hiking trails, not sure where I was going or what I was looking for. Just moving because staying still meant giving up, and I couldn't give up while my babies still depended on me for survival. The November afternoon was getting dark early, as it does in Pacific Northwest in late fall. Temperature was dropping rapidly as sunset. I was wearing only light jacket because I hadn't had money to buy winter coat and was beginning to shiver uncontrollably from cold. And then it started raining. Not gentle drizzle, but heavy downpour typical of Oregon winter that soaked me to skin in minutes. I was desperately looking for any kind of shelter when I saw it through the trees. An enormous old oak tree, must have been hundreds of years old with trunk several meters wide, and built into its branches about 15 feet up was small treehouse. It looked ancient and weathered with old wood turned gray from years of exposure. Windows were just openings without glass. Roof appeared to have holes, but it was shelter, and that was all that mattered in that moment. I approached the tree, found wooden ladder attached to trunk leading up to platform where treehouse sat. I tested ladder carefully. Surprisingly, it felt solid despite its aged appearance. I climbed up slowly, extremely difficult with my pregnant belly and my exhaustion. I had to stop several times to catch my breath and deal with false contractions that made me gasp in pain. When I finally reached top and pulled myself onto platform, I pushed open small wooden door that was hanging crooked on one hinge and crawled inside. The interior was small, maybe 10 feet by 12 feet, completely empty except for dried leaves accumulated in corners. Wooden floor was rough but intact without dangerous holes. Walls were wooden planks with gaps that let in wind and rain, but at least provided more protection than being completely exposed outside. Ceiling had few leaks where rain was coming through, but most of roof was still functional. There was no furniture, no indication anyone had lived here recently. It appeared abandoned for years, probably built decades ago by children as playhouse and then forgotten. I took off my soaked jacket, hung it on rusty nail protruding from wall. I curled up in corner of floor, trying to preserve body heat. I put hands on my belly, feeling my babies moving with agitation, probably sensing my stress and hunger. "We're safe for tonight, my loves," I whispered to them. "At least we have roof over our heads. Tomorrow we'll figure out what to do. Tomorrow we'll find help somehow." And with those words, I fell into exhausted sleep on hard wooden floor, too tired to even cry anymore. I woke next morning to pale November sunlight coming through empty window openings. My body ached from sleeping on hard floor. I was hungry with such intensity that my stomach cramped with pain. I felt my babies moving frantically inside me as if they too were crying out for food I couldn't give them. I looked around empty treehouse trying to think of plan for day, but found my mind was foggy from hunger and dehydration. I couldn't think clearly, couldn't see path forward. "God," I said out loud to empty air, not sure if I even believed in God anymore after everything that had happened. I know I haven't been a religious person. I haven't gone to church regularly or prayed much except when I wanted something, but I'm begging you now. I'm at the end. I have nothing left. My babies are going to die if someone doesn't help us. Please, if you exist and if you care, please help me. I'll take anything, any help at all." And then something impossible happened. Something that made me think I must be hallucinating from hunger and dehydration. On the wooden floor where there had been nothing moments before, suddenly there was a loaf of bread, just appeared out of nowhere. Fresh, warm bread that smelled like bakery. I blinked multiple times, rubbed my eyes, reached out and touched it, and it was absolutely real and solid. I picked it up with shaking hands. I bit into it, and it was most delicious thing I had ever tasted. I ate entire loaf in minutes, first food I had eaten in 2 days, and it filled my stomach in a way that felt miraculous. After finishing the bread, I sat in shock, trying to process what had just happened. "That's impossible," I said out loud. "Bread doesn't just materialize out of thin air. I must be losing my mind from stress." But the bread had been real. I could still taste it, feel it in my stomach. With trembling voice, I decided to test if what I thought had happened had actually happened. "I want water to drink," I said clearly and distinctly. And instantly, a glass of clean, clear water appeared on the floor beside me. I picked it up, drank it. It was real and cold and perfect. "Oh my God," I whispered. "What is this place?" I looked around the small, simple treehouse with new understanding that something profoundly unusual, something impossible, was happening here. I decided to try something else. "I want a comfortable bed to sleep in," I said with uncertainty in my voice, and instantly appeared full-size mattress with clean white sheets and pillows, most comfortable-looking bed I had ever seen. I screamed in shock, backed into corner, my heart pounding with fear and confusion. I spent next several hours cautiously experimenting with this impossible ability. I discovered I could wish for any physical object, and it would appear. I wished for complete meal from restaurant and table appeared with chair and plate of food perfectly prepared. I wished for clean dry clothes and closet materialized filled with maternity clothes in my exact size. I wished for bathroom and complete bathroom appeared with working shower, toilet, sink with hot and cold running water. I bathed for. First time in days, crying with relief. I wished for the interior of the treehouse to be bigger and more comfortable, and walls expanded outward. Ceiling rose up, creating space of multiple rooms, even though I knew from outside treehouse maintained same small weathered appearance. Over the following days and weeks that turned into more than month, I transformed the tiny decrepit treehouse from outside into something resembling luxury mansion. Inside, I created living room with enormous comfortable sectional sofa where I could put my feet up, giant television with access to all streaming services, even though I knew this access wasn't real because I couldn't actually interact with outside world through it. I created gourmet kitchen with professional appliances where I could wish for any meal from any cuisine in the world and it would appear perfectly prepared with restaurant-quality presentation. I created master bedroom with king-size bed with memory foam mattress that adjusted to my pregnant body, giving me best sleep I'd had in months. Private bathroom with jetted tub where I could soak in hot water to relieve back pain and swollen ankles. I created library with thousands of books, home theater with plush reclining seats, spa room with sauna. I even tried creating human servants to help with tasks, but quickly stopped when I realized these human-like figures were empty automatons without real consciousness or personality. They moved mechanically and had dead eyes that deeply unsettled me. They couldn't have real conversations, couldn't show genuine emotion, were hollow shells that felt wrong and disturbing. I had everything I could possibly want in material terms. I lived better than billionaires and millionaires with access to unlimited luxury. I ate food that would cost hundreds of dollars in fancy restaurants, wore designer clothes, slept in ultimate comfort, had entertainment and relaxation options most people could only dream of. But I was also completely, utterly, devastatingly alone in a way that was psychologically crushing. I was isolated from all human contact, couldn't reach out to anyone, couldn't have genuine conversation with real person, couldn't touch another human being or feel human warmth. The only real living consciousness in this magically perfect prison was myself and my two unborn babies who moved inside me, being only connection I had to real life. The loneliness was soul-destroying. I talked to my babies constantly because they were only real connection I had. Good morning, my loves. How did you sleep? Mommy dreamed about you last night. I dreamed you were already born and you were so perfect. I would rub my belly, feeling them respond with kicks and movement. I know this is a strange place, living in magical treehouse, but at least you're safe. At least you have everything you need. When you're born, you'll have best of everything. But even as I said these words, I knew something was deeply wrong. What kind of life would my babies have trapped in magical prison where they could never go outside into real world? I tried using the internet that appeared when I wished for it to contact people, but discovered that while I could see websites and read news, I couldn't actually interact. My messages wouldn't send. It was like looking through a window at world without being able to touch it. I watched news about Portland, saw pictures of normal people living normal lives, felt intense nostalgia for real world, no matter how difficult and imperfect it had been. Then one day, I entered my 9th month of pregnancy. I could feel I was getting close to labor. Then I felt real contractions beginning. Not Braxton Hicks false alarms, but actual labor contractions. Panic flooded through me. I'm not ready. I can't have babies here alone. I need doctor. I need hospital. I ran through my luxurious mansion screaming, I want hospital. I want doctors and nurses. And they appeared. Complete hospital room with medical equipment, hospital bed, doctors and nurses in white coats. But when contractions intensified and magical doctors began examining me, I realized with horror that while they looked real and followed correct procedures, they were like other creations of Treehouse, empty shells without real medical knowledge or skill. They were animatronics following basic programming. When complication developed, when one baby was in difficult position, magical doctors didn't know what to do. They just repeated generic phrases, everything will be fine, but clearly had no ability to handle real emergency. I screamed in pain and terror. No, this isn't going to work. I need real doctors, real hospital. Contractions were coming harder and faster. I was going into active labor. I knew my babies would be born in next few hours, and I knew with devastating clarity that if I stayed in this magical treehouse, both I and my babies would probably die. Magic could create illusion of medical help, but couldn't replace real knowledge and skill of actual medical professionals. In that moment of absolute terror, I made bravest decision of my life. I have to get out of here. I have to go to real hospital. I got off magical hospital bed, put on simple clothes I had wished for, ignored magical doctors telling me to stay, went down ladder from treehouse with immense difficulty, having contractions every 5 minutes. Each step was agony, but I continued. I reached base of tree, walked away from treehouse, and moment I got about 30 feet away, I felt difference. Magical comfort disappeared. I was back in harsh reality, in cold November forest with no shelter. Another contraction hit me, making me double over in pain. I fell to my knees on wet ground. God! I screamed to sky. I chose reality over illusion. I chose real life over false comfort. Please help me now. Don't let me die here. My babies don't deserve this, please. And then miracle happened. Not magical, but divine. Golden light appeared between trees. Not artificial magic light like in treehouse, but celestial light that brought immediate peace to my terrified heart. And in that light appeared figure I instantly recognized, even though I had never had vision like this before. It was Jesus with brown hair and beard, dressed in white, surrounded by radiance that was pure love made visible. Emma, my daughter, Jesus said with voice full of infinite compassion, you have chosen well. You chose real life over illusory comfort. You passed the test that treehouse represented. Many would have remained trapped in false luxury, forever losing everything that truly matters. But you had courage to leave illusory security to seek truth, even though it was dangerous. He touched my belly gently, and I felt supernatural warmth flow through my body. Contractions didn't disappear, but became manageable. Babies who had been in dangerous position shifted to correct position for safe delivery. Walk toward the road, Jesus told me, pointing direction. You will find help I have sent for you. Your babies will be born healthy, and you will begin new life. Remember always that no material comfort is worth more than authentic life with real people and genuine purpose. And he disappeared, leaving me crying with gratitude and relief. I walked in direction Jesus had indicated. 10 minutes later, I reached rural highway just as elderly couple named Tom and Martha were driving by in their pickup truck. They saw me and stopped immediately. Oh my lord, this young woman is pregnant and looks like she's in labor," Martha shouted. They helped me into truck, drove quickly to nearest small town that had rural hospital. We arrived just in time. My babies were born 3 hours later. Boy and girl perfectly healthy. Samuel weighing 7 pounds, 2 ounces, and Grace weighing 6 pounds, 15 ounces. I cried, holding them, feeling richer than when I had magical mansion, because this was real. These babies were true life, not illusion. This love was genuine, not manufactured. Tom and Martha visited daily. Turned out they had no children of their own, and had prayed for years asking God to bring someone into their lives they could help. When they saw my need, they knew it was answer to their prayers. They offered to let me stay in extra room of their modest house on their small farm, offered me job helping with farm tasks I could do while caring for babies, offered to be like family I didn't have. I gratefully accepted Tom and Martha's incredibly generous offer. I moved in with them to their humble farm located in rural area, 30 minutes from nearest small town. The farm wasn't large, just 10 acres where they grew vegetables and raised chickens and had few cows. Their house was simple single-story construction with 3 small bedrooms, living room with old but comfortable furniture, kitchen with appliances that worked but weren't fancy, 1 bathroom with shower that often ran cold. There were no luxuries of any kind, no big TV or internet or modern conveniences, but there was something infinitely more valuable than all the luxuries I had in Magical Treehouse. There was genuine human warmth. There were real conversations during shared meals. There was laughter when funny things happened. There was mutual support when problems came up that we faced together as improvised family. Years later, when Samuel and Grace were 7 years old, they were vibrant, healthy, happy children growing up on farms surrounded by nature, where they could run freely, climb trees, help Tom feed chickens, attend small rural school where teachers genuinely cared about each student. Samuel was curious, intelligent boy, fascinated with animals and plants, dreamed of being veterinarian someday. Grace was artistic child with natural talent for drawing that Martha cultivated. One day, years later, with curiosity, I returned to forest looking for tree with Magical Treehouse. I found the tree, but treehouse had completely disappeared. Only tree remained with no structure. I knew then it had been temporary spiritual test, not permanent gift. Test that I had passed by choosing reality over illusion. And the profound lesson resonated powerfully. That material comfort without real love and genuine human connection is fundamentally a golden prison that imprisons soul as much or more than material poverty. That choosing difficulty and challenge of real world, with all its imperfections, over perfect illusory comfort, is always right decision, even though it requires tremendous courage. That God values our conscious choices of uncomfortable authenticity over comfortable convenience, and that real life lived in imperfect world, with real people who have flaws, but can offer authentic love is worth infinitely more than false life in artificial paradise, where every material desire is instantly fulfilled, but soul withers in absolute solitude.